Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Prisoners will now be called upon to reduce the shortage of labor in the agriculture sector. The Ministry of Community Development hosts its Community Development Partnership Forum, Exhibition and Community Heroes Awards. And the Prime Minister joins the rest of the world in sending birthday greetings to former South African President Nelson Mandela. Thank you for joining us to our top story. The world joins in celebrating former South African President Nelson Mandela's birthday. Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar sent greetings to the ailing freedom fighter. In her letter, the Prime Minister described Mr. Mandela as a symbol of sacrifice, bringing reconciliation to us all.
As the world recognizes Nelson Mandela Day today, the 95th birthday of the freedom fighter, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar sent out her greetings to the man who changed the way we view our liberty. In her message to the former South African president, she recalled his visit to TNT in 2004 as leaving an indelible mark on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar described him as a true world leader who brought meaningful and lasting change through his non-violent struggles for human rights and the freedom of the people. In noting his invaluable contribution to world peace, the Prime Minister thanked him for promoting unity and peace and mutual respect through sustainable development through the eradication of racialism, prejudice and violence in a beleaguered world. The day was officially declared by the United Nations in November 2009, with the first UN Mandela Day held on July 18, 2010. Born in 1918, Mandela fought against white rule in South Africa as a young lawyer and was convicted of treason in 1964. He spent the next 27 years in jail. It was in part through his willingness to forgive his white jailers that Mandela made his indelible mark on history. After negotiating an end to apartheid, he became South Africa's first black president, drawing a line under centuries of colonial and racist oppression. He then led reconciliation in a deeply divided country. This year's commemoration holds extra significance as a Nobel Prize winner was recently hospitalized for recurring lung infection. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
In other news, prisoners will now be called upon to reduce the shortage of labor in the agriculture sector while gaining training and the potential for further employment following their prison time.
The UN Standard Minimum Rules 71.2 states that all prisoners under sentence shall be required to work subject to their physical and mental fitness as determined by the medical officer. Therefore, all categories of prisoners, including an unconvicted prisoner, should be offered an opportunity to work. For convicted prisoners, work must be compulsory unless he is deemed unfit by a medical officer or otherwise. And for unconvicted prisoners, while they are not required to work, they may do so if they so desire and subject to the approval, of course, to the Commissioner of Police, and they may be allowed to work within the confines of the prison.
The Ministry of Food Production will embark on a collaborative initiative with the Ministry of Justice that will see the shortage of labour in the agriculture sector lowered by prisoners. On Thursday, during the post-cabinet news briefing, Minister of Food Production, Senator the Honourable Devan Maharaj, spoke of the Ministry of Justice's Medium Policy Framework 2011 to 2014, which outlined its strategies to reduce recidivism.
The Ministry of Food Production recognized an opportunity here for the collaboration with the Ministry of Justice. Accordingly, the Ministry of Food Production approached the Ministry of Justice to develop an initiative that enables the Ministry of Food Production to utilize the clients of the Ministry of Justice on farms under the purview of the Ministry of Food Production as determined. Cabinet was informed that at the core of this collaboration would be a program designed to train the clients of the Ministry of Justice, in particular its prisons, by the Ministry of Food Production, as stated in the medium-term policy framework, and the provision of labour via the trained clients of the Ministry of Justice to increase the capacity of farm labour in the sector.
The Honourable Minister said a mechanism exists in the Ministry of Food Production to facilitate the training of prisoners called the Agriculture Now Initiative.
The Ministry of Food Production operates several farms across the country These farms are providing seedlings and other inputs for farmers. They include La Reunion Plant Propagation Station, St. Augustine Nurseries, Marpa Farms, El Carmen Seed Unit, and as such, the trained clients of the Ministry of Justice can be stationed on these farms in the implementation of the employment service.
Minister of Justice, Senator the Honourable Chrislyn Moore, noted that for years, prisoners have been receiving training in a number of fields, including the construction sector.
The training of prisoners has already been going on, and the security component is already established. What this current collaboration does is that it moves from what is basically a brush cutting exercise or a limited training facility in construction, and it expands it to training in the agricultural sector. I should also mention that this program is also partnered with the Ministry of Tertiary Education. And this is important because it not only gives a certification element to the training, so that the prisoner at the end of the day has a document to present to a potential employer that is accredited by the education system of Trinidad and Tobago, that attests to the training he has received via this particular method.
Such initiatives are common in countries across the world and allow for the dual benefit of prisoners and communities. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
When we come back, Community Heroes Awards. We'll tell you more. Stay with us. For the first time, the Ministry of Community Development hosts its Community Development Partnership Forum exhibition and Community Heroes Awards. Acting Minister of Community Development, the Honorable Clifton Decoto, Minister of National Diversity and Social Integration, expressed the need to recognize these community pioneers for their diligence in establishing communities.
Unsung heroes of our communities. Those are the people government is looking to recognize for their contributions to developing villages and towns across the nation. Through their dedicated spirit toward encouraging and inculcating this sense of togetherness through activities, training and identifying their uniqueness within their community is one of the traits the Community Development Ministry is seeking to enhance and encourage. The establishing of the Community Heroes Awards honors these men and women who have made such contributions to their communities. During its first biennial Community Development Partnership Exhibition and Heroes Awards, and speaking on behalf of Community Development Minister Winston Peters, Acting Minister Clifton Decoto spoke of the need to recognize these persons for their diligence, while at the same time take a page out of their book and apply it to the wider community that is Trinidad and Tobago.
The need has arisen for a more concerted effort towards sustainable community development, as it is indeed a prerequisite for sustainable national development. The first Community Development Partnership Forum and Exhibition, Building Communities, Building a Nation, demonstrates the focus of the Ministry of Community Development on building Trinidad and Tobago from the ground up, community, building, and if you permit me, Trinbago.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Donna Faraz, says this change in community development entails looking at each community and individual strengths and enabling them to showcase their uniqueness.
We need to understand, for instance, why volunteerism, on which community activism is founded, is not being readily embraced among the critical youth mass. How technology and the consequent communication styles have affected intergenerational relationships. How we must strategize for dormitory-type communities and climate change, and how the village and community groups can find their voices once more to participate meaningfully and on equal footing on issues related to governance and development.
But each community holds indigenous cultures and traits that make them unique. However, government is seeking a new approach to community development that looks at creating sustainable, stronger neighborhoods while strengthening the capacity for these practitioners. In doing so, the ministry is hosting a 3-day event for networking and panel discussions and moving forward. Minister Decoto says this will be done through tailored programs aimed at promoting a more responsible culture nationwide.
The ministry developed a strategic plan 2011 to 2015 with a number of goals, including the development of an economically viable, socially responsible, and resilient community sector, the development of innovative programs and services to build and enhance the sector's social and economic capacity, establishing stronger relationships with local, regional, and international agencies in the development and implementation of innovative community-based developmental programs, undertaking initiatives to provide catalysts to the effective provision of programs leading to disciplined society and promoting environmentally sensitive programs with the aim of sustainable development.
Such a forum that seeks dialogue with stakeholders is the first in a Community Development Ministry's history and falls as part of the Ministry's week of activities aimed at celebrating community development in Trinidad and Tobago.
The unsung hero is them who take the community to great height. It's them who never give up. They continue with the fight to make sure that their community is better than the best. And it will always come first in every test.
Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
The stakeholders' consultation on the Food Safety Modernization Act continued with Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment delivering the feature address. The second day saw an oversubscription of private sector companies, which were informed by the president of the TTMA that the act could work in their favor.
The Food and Beverage Industry Development Committee continued its Food Safety Modernization Act stakeholders consultation on Tuesday at the Hilton Trinidad and Conference Center. The second day of stakeholder consultations focused on the private sector and sensitizing it to the changes to the food and beverage industry which the Act has brought.
The Food and Beverage Industry Development Committee was established in 2005 by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment to oversee the implementation of a strategic plan for the food and beverage industry and to execute relevant promotional and advisory services and activities to further the development of the industry over the long term. One of its priorities and its strategic objectives was to increase food safety within the industry and to protect the population from substandard food products and foodborne illnesses. Therefore, in this particular context, the committee's role is very timely indeed in arranging this seminar, as knowledge of the US FDA regulations is imperative for our manufacturers if they are to both increase and in many instances maintain their presence in the US market.
The Honourable Minister said the global food and beverage industry is one of the major contributors to growth in many economies, particularly in Trinidad and Tobago, as it represents close to 50% of the non-manufacturing sector. Statistics show that in Trinidad and Tobago, there are approximately 430 firms operating in the food and beverage industry, employing well over 11,000 persons directly and even more persons indirectly.
Manufacturers in Trinidad and Tobago started by necessity to explore and exploit new markets many, many moons ago. And it's the reason why today Trinidadian manufacturers are ahead of the game as far as innovation and creativity is concerned, and also as far as having reinvested in new equipment and new technology over the years. And so therefore that has put us in a position where we can very easily compete, certainly as far as technology is concerned, certainly as far as equipment is concerned, certainly as far as know-how. But of course, you're always going to have hurdles that we must confront, and this is one of them that we must confront head-on.
President of the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, Nicholas Lockjack, spoke of how the Act would work in the favor of local manufacturers.
We have to produce at a higher standard today. It's not just about the US. If you're entering the US, it doesn't matter where in the world you're gonna go. As we all know, any food magazine you pick up across beverage and industry, confectionery, agro-processing, bottling, it does not matter. The first topic you see in any of these food industry magazines these days is food safety. Where is food safety taking us? You go to the trade shows, all equipment is designed around food safety. It seems they don't even talk about efficiency anymore. It's all about food safety. And that's critical, and that's important to understand where we're going in the future. It's a good thing for us in that it increases the barriers to entry in our industry. As long as we are established players and could get up to speed and get up to mark, we have a solid market of which we know who our competitors are, and it'll be very difficult for somebody to come in as a new entrant, meet the standards, have the investment, have the knowledge and the know-how to be able to compete with us.
He noted that the investment necessary to facilitate this is both in infrastructure and in people. The government, through the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment, is working to ensure that all producers, manufacturers and exporters meet the required standard and continue to have access to international markets while ensuring that locals are exposed to the highest of quality in the domestic market. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Sport is up right after the break. Stay with us. Soca Warriors.net's Brian Patriot Springer is in the United States following the Trinidad and Tobago men's senior national team's CONCACAF Gold Cup journey. News 4 senior sports correspondent was able to catch up with the Warriors superfan and get the following interview.
News 4 Sports at the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Courtesy the Ministry of Sports and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
How do you think Trinidad and Tobago looking under the new coach Stephen Hart? I mean, it's just 3 weeks, but we saw some difference, didn't we?
I saw a lot of positives from it. I mean, from the get-go, you saw the team was playing with some purpose. You saw them taking their time and moving the ball around, and I have to say I haven't seen that kind of confidence on the ball, particularly with the defenders, since back in 2006. So I'm seeing some positive signs already that we hold in possession a little better.
What do you think are the prospects, not just for the senior national team, but Trinidad and Tobago football? No wonder we're seeing some new administrators, we're seeing things happening left, right and centre with regards to football on and off the field. Give me your opinion on that, because I know you have been watching for years.
Yeah, and I'll say that within the last 6 months, 7 months or so since Mr. Timpi has ascended to the presidency of the Football Association, I've seen a lot of positive signs. We're actually playing matches and against significant teams, both home and, well, actually not home, but abroad. But I'm seeing the signs that there's some improvement, and the signs are there that things can still improve, but we're seeing positive steps in the right direction.
Before the rain comes, what you and your organization would like to see further, you know, in Trinidad and Tobago football?
I'd like to see a continuation of what we've been seeing. I would like to see that we don't wait until we have a tournament like such as this one, where we hustle to get matches together and put the team together. I would like to see an ongoing prospect of continuous games, and the team should be gauged based on that, and you have guys coming in and out, so that when tournament time comes, you have a team in place.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right,
good luck to the team.
All right, we see more positive reviews for Trinidad and Tobago football.
News 4 Sports at the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Courtesy the Ministry of Sports and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
In other sporting news, Westside Superstars are on top of the Blink B-Mobile National Super League after match day 2. Akil Morris's brace and Keon Grovesno's sublime finish against Bethel United ensure that they remain on course to repeat last season's fantastic performance.
3 seems to be the lucky number for Westside Superstars as they secured a second consecutive 3-goal margin win in the Blink B-Mobile National Super League. Newly promoted Bethel United came to St. Anthony's ground hoping for a win, but that one Saint wasn't enough to help them avoid a defeat. Bethel's Rodney Nelson got the action started with a header which went a little too high and wide, but showing good intent. Wilson followed this up with another attempt on goal, missing the target again. It was Westside's time to respond, however. A horrible or horribly embarrassing miss after some equally horribly embarrassing goalkeeping ensured the scores remained level. It wasn't to remain that way for long. Former Queen's Royal College forward Akil Morris slotting it home in the 13th to put Westside Superstars up 1-0. And it was Morris again in the 26th taking advantage of some slack defending and goalkeeping by Bethel United to poke the ball into the middle of the net. Westside Superstars 2, Bethel United 0. Westside, still believing attack to be the best form of defense, pushed forward. Jack Whedon looking good. then not so good, as he dragged first the Bethel United player, then his shot wide of the post. Bethel looking for a response. Larry Potts attempting to place this one in the box, but could only send it into the keeper's path. Bethel came out firing after the half with some fancy tricks and flicks. And shots on goal, but still no goal. Keon Grosvenor with a fabulous play, rounding the keeper in the 71st and sliding the ball past him to put Westside Superstars 3-0 up, and that's the way it would end. The Superstars staying on top of the Blink B-Mobile National Super League standings with 6 points from 2 games. Gregory McBurney, News 4 Sports.
News 4 continues after the break. Plans are being made for a trade mission to Trinidad and Tobago following the involvement of His Excellency Dr. Neil Passan, Ambassador of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to the United States of America, in the recent Charleston CARIFEST Symposium, Business Forum and Parade.
For 3 days, Trinidad and Tobago took over Charleston, the second largest city in South Carolina in the United States. This as the city held its 8th annual Charleston CARIFEST. The festival celebrates the culture and heritage of the Caribbean American community in South Carolina with a street parade and an educational symposium. His Excellency Dr. Neil Passan was a key panelist at the Caribbean Symposium hosted at the Avery Research Center of the University of South Carolina. Ambassador Passan was also accompanied by Dr. Anil Ramnanan, Consul General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to Miami, Florida. The symposium attracted persons from throughout the city to discuss its theme, Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago, Past, Present and Future. Panelists also addressed more specifically the history of steel pan and soca and the many ways in which Trinidad and Tobago has used culture as a tool for unity in a diverse and multicultural society. Ambassador Passan's visit to South Carolina culminated with a business forum highlighting business and investment opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago. Within the next few months, executives in various industries such as finance, energy, real estate, urban planning and tourism are all expected to visit these twin islands as part of an upcoming trade mission. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.